Well, Nigeria is one of the world's largest producers of crude oil, and its deposits of this important mineral resource are enormous. Now, from tussles over the gifting of oil fields to individuals to years of institutional corruption in the oil sector, the Nigerian government has struggled to make the most of its massive oil abundance. Its oil is largely stolen, and as the country continues to deepen further into debt, its greatest resource is being cornered by powerful elements who are in control of the reins of a nation's greatest financial channel. With the discovery of yet another massive oil pipeline cornered and dried for monetary gains by an unnamed group, the hanging question remains: who sponsors these ruins? Welcome to Village Square. I'm Sulaiman. Well, just recently, the Group Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria's oil major, the NNPC, Mele Kyari, revealed that a 4-kilometer, yes, 4 kilometers illegal oil route was discovered at the Forcados to the sea. Kyari revealed that the illegal route had stood for 9 years without discovery. Now, this staggering discovery, running into trillions in losses, got Nigerians talking about how much of the country's resources is being illegally processed and rerouted. Now, the Forcados is operated by Shell Petroleum Development Company. Kyari further revealed that the discovery is 30 kilometers away from Shell's Forcados terminal. In developments that have raised questions, Kyari revealed that the pipeline passes through the Trans-Escravos and not the SPDC's Forcados as initially stated. The NNPC had awarded contracts to companies including those owned by ex-militants to help discover and crack down on the illegal oil routes. Joining me to unpack this is Annkio Briggs. She is Niger Delta's self-determination activist, and Captain Warredi Enisuoh, who is a maritime intelligence, aviation, and e-surveillance systems consultant. With me live in the studios is Elvis Donkemezuo. He's the chairman Bayelsa Young Business Council. And of course, it's a good place to start by saying welcome to you all. Now, let's start first with you, Annkio Briggs, and before we come to the studios here. This is one big find that is really mind-boggling and disturbing. For some, they say they weren't surprised. Were you shocked or surprised with the findings?
Good evening, everyone. Luckily, you and I have had several conversations when you were in another TV station almost 2 decades. Time flies ago. I started pointing out these things. So am I surprised? Of course I'm not surprised. Why should I be surprised? The federal government is claiming that it is only becoming aware of the fact that oil is being stolen, the resources in the Niger Delta is being stolen. That surprises me because the fact that oil is being stolen from the Niger Delta, in my analysis and opinion, did not start today. It started way back from when they discovered and claimed that they were lifting oil in 1958. So if you look back and you look forward now, I'm surprised that, first of all, it is only now that the government is claiming that all these resources are being stolen. First of all, by my understanding, I think that NNPC belongs to a handful of Nigerians that are mainly from a particular part of Nigeria. Correct me if I am wrong. So I'm surprised that we're talking about NNPC as if it is a Nigerian government concern. That's one. Two, to claim that we are not aware just shows how irresponsible the Nigerian government from time has been, that they are not aware. We have been aware in the Niger Delta for a very, very long time how the stealing of crude oil goes on. I was able to demonstrate it to Yaradua when he was alive in 2008, how the oil is being stolen. For you to get oil out of a pipeline, that pipeline, if it is flowing with oil and you're stealing it, it will spill. But if it is not flowing with oil, then you hook it up. It means that somebody at another point knows that you're going to hook up. And then when you've hooked up, they release the valve that is going to give you the oil, whether it's 4 miles, 4 kilometers long, or 9, or whatever it is, for you to cut away as many barrels of oil in a day as you want. And the Nigerian government is unaware of how much oil exactly, one, the oil companies are lifting because they go by the information given to them, and two, how much money is being made from what they claim that is coming in from the sales of crude oil. So I'm surprised that the government is raising it now that the elections are coming on, and all the people talking about why should Tompolo do this and why should Tompolo not do that? We're seeing very clearly that he's good at his job because other people had this contract before Tompolo did. Where were they when all this was going on in the past 7 to 8 years?
Okay, let me jump in here and bring in Warredi. Warredi, thanks again for your time, and you're a maritime intelligence expert. And one of the key things Nigerians would want to know is how possible for this humongous heist, oil heist, to happen without anyone sounding the alarm.
For this opportunity to throw more light on the events that have happened in the last couple of weeks. Yes, it's a very, very humongous find. To tell you that we didn't know before now is an understatement. We knew quite a lot of things. We have been on issues like this for long. As I said, it was a good thing that the government has woken up to it. It's better to be late than never. It has not been an easy one as we speak. Yeah, but however, having said that, I would like to do the same lines with the previous speaker. This is not a new problem. And it's a very sophisticated problem. It's an organized crime. It's got quite a fair bit of dimensions. It's got both local dimension, it's got international dimension. And I will explain both sides now. Now, the local dimension, let me say here that it's quite small. It's not big as much as the international dimension. Now, what happens in the local dimension is that you have locals who prime disused valves, get oil out of it, fill up their illegal storages in the forest, and then pipe it to illegal refineries, come up with diesel, kerosene, and so much and so forth. Sometimes bag them and put them in trucks on the road to fuel stations and sell. And that's the local dimension to it. The international dimension is mainly raw crude that goes way out of Nigeria. Now, it is easy, and also it is not easy to steal crude oil from a pipeline that is live. There is no way it is possible without some form of complicity with internal people. Now, with that particular connection we saw, if you look at it very well, it was not done by a mediocre. It was definitely done with the connivance of a couple of people. And all these things are pressure tested. So to say that we didn't know by the operators is not something that is acceptable. However, having said that, and as you saw previously in the news, to be able to construct something like that, you would require, and I repeat, you would require high-tech, heavy equipment, because you could even see the way we dug up that particular place. We didn't dig it up with our hands. It didn't take just one day to do it. So equally, it couldn't have even taken just a week to do a job that is so constructive that you're going to be able to take something out to sea. Now, the Nigerian coast is full of vessels, full of ships that are waiting for this oil. Make no mistakes, Nigeria's oil is very clean and very, very appetizing to refineries. So a whole lot of people are hanging around both for the illegal and legal ones, as you say. It's not everybody that is coming in for illegal oil, but you have the legal sections of it. So a whole lot of people are hanging around. And the Nigerian continental shelf the gradient is quite low. So because of that low gradient, sometimes you don't have big ships being able to come in to take this oil. So you need these low draft ships like you see on your screen now to be able to come close in enough where they've made some whole lot of arrangements on when to come in and then get their oil. This particular one that you see on the screen actually came from Lagos. We've been watching a whole lot of them for some time. There are about 5 of them, but it came in early, came to Escravos, and it got the green light to go inside because they thought they got the coast clear. But they didn't know that the gallant forces of Nigeria was watching over them in addition to the private security.
I'll come back to you because this is looking very interesting. If there's been some kind of surveillance, now you say that particular ship that was destroyed. We'll come back to that because many people are not excited about it being destroyed, as that would have given the nation some kind of inkling. So Elvis, once again, thanks for your time. Just as Annkio said, we've spoken about this countless times many years ago, and today, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we're getting to put our finger on something tangible, even though it looks like it's almost lost with the burning and destruction of that ship. How did that news come to you? Were you also surprised?
How would I be surprised? Funny enough, we've been talking about this thing over the last few years, and for me, I was a little bit exhausted, complaining without providing solution. I'm more interested in what we ought to do to stop this menace from going on. First, it's a sham that the government would tell Nigerians that a few weeks into the intervention of a new contract given to a Niger Delta a civilian, and then they are coming out with all of this revolution and nobody's losing his job.
Nobody's losing his job.
Yes. So it goes to tell you that over the years, lots of things have been happening and people have just been sweeping it under the carpet. It's because most of the multinationals are all putting up their shares for sale, divesting to other countries in Africa. Now, what you see is a tip of an iceberg, compared to what the revolution that you would see from the Nembe trunk line, which goes to the Bonny terminal. This line, this discovery line, was built many years ago by Wibros. And I think it's about 18 inches, 10, 12 inches pipeline. The one in Nembe cut across Cotton Channel to Bonny export terminal, it's about 24 inches pipeline, was built by Enisuoh. The kind of tapping that is on that line, when they start excavating, what you will see, it's unbelievable. And funny enough, Saudi Aramco, over 20 years ago, has invented a technology in their pipelines whereby immediately a drop of crude oil is produced, they can monitor it to the point of export. Therefore, once there's an infringement on the line, any part of the line, there's a detection mechanism that will signal the point, and they can send either relief or security agencies to go and apprehend such situation. You know, for me, it's a pathetic one because over time, the blame has been shifted towards host communities. to say communities are the one perpetrating this act of sabotaging the federal government investment. And then you see them moving soldiers to the creeks, invade our communities, molest our women and our children. But today, we have been saying these things that the quantity from artisan refineries is way too small compared to the outrageous figures being given to us by...
Elvis, let me jump in here. Sorry
Yeah.
to butt in. Before I go to Annkio Briggs, because you just told us something about the Nembe trunk, pipelines.
Yeah.
And this information is known to people around the areas.
Yes.
Why is it that it's almost impossible for the government to also have that information to actually put a stop to whatever activity is happening in that particular trunk line?
So that is what I was about to arrive at before you cut me short. You see, the issues about crude oil theft, it's not about what is happening. The issues now is about how do we stop crude oil theft in this country. And it's not a rocket science. You see, some of us had been a consultant to most of these multinationals, and we have provided numerous advices, solutions, even to those in government. You see, the petroleum industry bureaucracy is what is affecting this country. The policy at which we are using today is a policy that was enacted many years ago. What we are saying is that the measures that have been put in place today, using the local security from Tompolo, which is good, is a short-term measures. What we are saying today, if we want to truly put a permanent solution to the menace of oil theft in this country, is to revisit the legislative processes that is being governed the oil and gas practices in this country. So it's a win-win situation for all. But each time we bring these issues forward to the National Assembly and then the government, people play sentiments because they believe that we are advocating for certain equity to the host communities. We are not saying this because we believe that host communities should take ownership of Nigerian assets. We are saying that they have a role to play in protecting this asset, as it's being done everywhere. For example, some places in the West, they will say if 100 liters, 100 barrels of crude is being mined from this locality, 0 or 0.12% should be given to the locals within that place. So they can also be, participants to that process. But because we lack this sense of ownership, nobody plays key personal interests to protect these pipelines. Therefore, you see people coming, tease people around, and then they can carry out this activity. But you see, the danger in what we have today in this country is that these short gap measures that they put in place now by combating these activities and then putting the security of this pipeline into locals, is that over time, some of these boys may be, induced, disloyalty may come in, and therefore these activities will continue. So the only permanent solution that we can profile today is when we revisit the legislative processes that have governed these oil and gas prices in this country. And in addition to that, excuse me, before you move, let me add something. In addition to that, you could remember that the preambles to the amnesty that was proclaimed by President Yar'Adua was that after the amnesty was given to the Niger Delta people to create a palliative peace for critical infrastructural developmental processes to be carried out in the Niger Delta. Now, over the last 8 years, it appears that nothing is even happening. Initially,
I'll come back to you,
okay.
And I hope you don't lose your train of thought, so that we can also tie that with the PIA, because first it was a bill, but the act is already in place, because if you're talking about the community's input and talking about legislation, we should bring that all, as well in. Annkio, I'll come back to you, and thanks for your patience and time. You described Nigeria's oil major, the NNPC, as belonging not to Nigeria as a country, but a few individuals. And speak to us on this, because Elvis has just pointed out to activities, illegal activities in another trunk line, which till this moment the government hasn't actually spoken about. Let us in on this. Is it that the NNPC, as you have so described, is deliberately, speaking of its leadership, looking the other way when these illegal miners and thieves operate? Is that what you meant?
Absolutely. Look, before the NNPC was sold, and it is now a limited company, as I said, to a group of Nigerians from a particular region of Nigeria, the NNPC has been controlled by government. NNPC is appointed by the federal government. The people controlling the NNPC on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria are appointed by the federal government of Nigeria. Therefore, if this level of theft, as they claim, has been going on, they say it's been going on for, I don't know, 9 years or something. And I categorically say, as a Niger Delta daughter, that it has been going on for far, far more than that. These are some of the things that led to the armed agitation almost 2 decades ago. Now, if the NNPC is saying that it has just recently discovered, even just believing them and not conceding that that is actually true, then you can see the failure of an organization like the NNPC when your so-called resources are being stolen by people you don't know, and you've only discovered it now. What I again am opposed to is trying to put the theft of the resources on the Niger Delta people. That is absolutely untrue, and it is not acceptable, because technically, as I said earlier, it is hard, difficult to steal. It's not like you're just turning up a pipe and you get water and you close it. It's not like that. Somebody has to give the go ahead for somebody to do this and do that, and then the release goes on. So the federal government, even if it says it is only aware now, if you remember in 2003, there was a group of journalists that were tried for lying that oil was being stolen. That is 2003. And that politicians were involved in this step. If you move forward, the fact that the MD of Chevron had said some time ago, maybe last year or early this year, had said that the oil theft going on in Nigeria is a highly sophisticated method of stealing. Now, this oil that is being stolen is being sold outside of this country. It's being sold on the black market, on the spot market, and some people are buying them. Now, those ships that are coming in to collect from what they can take in from the pipe and then take to what is called the mothership. Now, those ships are owned by people in a country, and they are flying a country's flag. If you remember, in August, the Nigerian Navy said that they saw a ship laden with millions of barrels of oil, and the Nigerian Navy chased this ship laden with oil, and they couldn't catch this ship, and a neighboring country caught the ship. They didn't set it on fire, but they now set the ones that Tompolo has caught, handed over to the Navy, and the Navy set fire to it. If Navy is setting fire to something like crude oil, then the people in the Navy that give this order are illiterates. They don't know what they're doing, because if they know what they are doing, first of all, they've destroyed the evidence. Second of all, they have destroyed our environment, which for me is more important. And that's why I continue to call for a moratorium. We must have a moratorium on the exploration and exploitation of oil and gas. Look at the mess that the Navy is creating now for us and putting it on the head of a group of men that are using coal fire, not illegally, improperly, using the method to get a refined product and sell it to the people who need it. Filling stations are buying these things. So Nigeria should look at the real problem. The real problem is not in the Niger Delta, and it is not by the Niger Delta people. The real problem is international. The real problem is the Nigerian government, and the real problem are the people who have comported themselves into a cabal. Look, my people that are in oil, when I say my people, I mean the Niger Delta people that are in oil business as they think that they are. The oil business they are in is just the crumbs. It's the crumbs of oil business. When others are stealing, not even buying, stealing millions of barrels of crude oil a day from the Niger Delta. And my people think that what they just need is a cup full of oil. No, we should come together and begin to ask. I'm talking about the politicians. I'm talking about the oil business interests of Niger Delta people. We should be talking about owning the resources that is in our land. Look at the mess you're showing right now. It's in my land. This mess you're showing the world is in my land. And the illness and the negativities of all of these things to the environment is we that are feeling the impact on it of what is happening in the Niger Delta. So it's not our fault, it's the fault of the government, it's the fault of the cabal, and the international community. Really, if they don't come into it, they will also suffer in the future like we are suffering.
Okay, Annkio, I'll come back to you so that you can speak to us more on, the cleanup exercise. Give us an update, because our team just returned from that part of the country, specifically in the Delta Bayelsa region. Let's come to you, Warredi. Warredi, I'm looking at what government Ekpemopolo is doing, leading a group of Niger Delta natives to discover some of these illegal pipelines. And of course, he's also revealed that more than 58 points have been found to be illegally tapped in Bayelsa and Delta states. Now, the Nigerian government just renewed the contract, and this is coming barely, weeks after that renewal. Tell us here, Warredi, the ships and this particular one you spoke to us earlier that you say came all the way through the Lagos route, this information, get to you through the Nigerian state or some other security efforts?
Thank you very much for that question. Before I will start to answer them, I also want to say that one of the suggestions given by the speaker before the last is already on ground and being implemented, which is the community should own or take responsibility for whatever is passing through their areas. So one of the things that Tantita has done, the chairman of Tantita, Tompolo, has done is that he has made sure that in every community that a pipeline passes that is under his care or the care of the Tantita must recruit the indigents of that particular area to take responsibility.
Can you help define what that means? Because we have an audience from outside Niger. What's a Tantita?
Tantita is the company that was awarded the contract to monitor and carry out surveillance activities on the pipelines. That's the name of the company, Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited, of which Tompolo is the chairman of that particular company. Okay, now I wanted to get that out and so that we know that that is already ongoing. Now I'll come to the ship. In terms of ships, they can be a bit tricky. Well, even before now, and way back, even as far back as 10 years ago, I was part of those who was involved in international maritime surveillance. I've done these jobs for different countries, and I think Nigeria seems to be my stop on this particular activity. And they're not easy. We monitor them with satellites, we monitor them, their movements, we pay people to give us information, and we have a very, very big data bank of illegal activities by ships, which is why you are finding this job very easy at the moment. You know, in a very short period, we're seeing all of these things. That tells you that even though we were not part of this for all these years, but for the love of our country, we maintained a data bank of intelligence, and you will see more will come out as time goes on. So it ain't an easy thing. It's as a result of years of interaction with people, maintaining satellite images, maintaining records, knowing how things go.
But quickly here, Warredi, quickly here, now that you're here, one of the key things, how do you respond to Nigeria's cry, including Annkio's concern that the ship that was, arrested by Tantisa was set ablaze?
Well, it was apprehended by Tantisa and arrested by the gallant forces of the Nigerian government, whom have been with us right there. So anyway, well, I know, I quite understand the concerns Nigerians have about this situation, but you know, this is not the first time that these kind of things have happened in terms of apprehending ships with oil. What most of them do, and it's coming from experience, that they quickly run and take a court injunction against you not to go near the ship anymore. So what you then find is that that oil is on the ship while you are likely going to be in port for 8 years. And as we all know, a ship sitting with oil in that water for 8 years is far more dangerous than evaporating that oil now before somebody takes an injection and you start going back and forth. And one thing also that will happen again is that years from now, the amount of oil quantity you find in that ship today may not be there, and you could be accused of being the person who stole it.
Before I come back to the studio here to Elvis, quickly here, because Warredi, that's our land, talking about Nigeria, Africa, southern Nigeria, which you should also be concerned. And the chairman of Tantisa is also from that region. How logical is that to destroy a ship laden with crude when in fact the pollution is already consuming the entire aquatic and human life?
The kind of pollution you're going to have, okay, first I would say it's not really the way we would want to do things or people would want to do things, but you have to send a strong message to people that, look, if this is the kind of business you're going to engage in, you're going to lose a lot of your money, including your tools of trade. So it's literally a message that the government wants to send out there, which to some extent, while others may see it this way or the other way, but the devastation created by allowing these people to know that they can get protection through a very loose system is far worse than what you saw yesterday. Yesterday, the thing is being burnt and is going up in the air or something like that. But if it is allowed to flow into the river, I guess you will have far more bigger problem, like your fishing nets are gone. I don't know what you're going to settle for at the end of the day. So processes are being developed where these things are going to be handled.
Well, anyway, I'll come back to you, Captain Warredi, because we've been there, and it's a shame, and it breaks any heart to see that those who live around there actually can't feed or use the water from such communities, and to think that this is how the government or Nigeria would, chase the criminals is something that leaves a whole lot to be desired. I'll come back to you, Warredi. Elvis, now to you. Looking at the communities, it's really heartbreaking. We're sitting pretty here, but people can't drink, use, can feed. There's no life, human or aquatic life in these areas. And you speak about the community's involvement, even as Warredi has said, well, there is plans to see how they can come in. But the cleanup, which I also want Joseph and Annkio to speak to us about, paint us a picture of how the people are living at the moment.
Well, basically, there's nothing more to what the people can live with, considering the kind of circumstances of devastation that is within their communities. Oil was discovered in Nigeria, in Warredi, Bayelsa State in 1956. Now, within Warredi and its environs at Bayelsa to Delta, if you go there today, you will see numerous abandoned Christmas trees in shallow waters. These are oil wells that have been drilled, abandoned in shallow waters. I mean, tons of hundreds of them, and they are still bleeding little aspect of oil into the river. So our people have come to reality to understand that this is what they are going to live with for the rest of their life. Now, what comes to mind is that over the years when this exploitation was being carried out, what measures of development that those who were in charge gave back to those areas. There is no access to any medical facility, anything within, let's say, 100 kilometers from where those oil exploration activities was carried out. No basic education. In fact, no access road. So that brings you back to some of the things I wanted to enumerate in my earlier summation that...
By all means, go ahead.
Yeah, that over time, we have been having discourse on the issues that borders around oil exploration, underdevelopment, without solution. I'm tired of talking about things without providing detailed solution on how to remediate these issues. Because there was an NDDC master plan during the tenure of Chief Ndutimi Aledeh that the government was supposed to implement to develop the Niger Delta. The Niger Delta Technical Committee recommendation also recommended that the Minorities Commission should be set up basically for infrastructural development in the Niger Delta region with specific recommendations for the coastal railroad, the coastal rail line, the deep sea port in Brass, Bayelsa, the free trade zone in Brass, Bayelsa. These are avenues that would have, boost economic fortunes for the people of the Niger Delta. Now, over the last few years, we've seen little or none attention from the central government to propel those agreements that were signed. The NDDC is yet to get a substantial board. There are key potential roles in safeguarding the Niger Delta that the NDDC ought to be playing. Also to mitigate the environmental degradations and what have you that is going on in the Niger Delta. You can see what is happening also with the flood situation. There's also supposed to be some canal cleaning and, creation of avenues for floods to accommodate flood at the river level. Now, why am I taking you a little bit from the oil pipeline? That it's relative to what the situation the people in the Niger Delta are facing. Now, environmental issues as relates to burning of crude oil found in a vessel is a pathetic one, owning up to the fact that as we speak, there are several hazardous cycles that is being blowing around the Niger Delta. For example, in Port Harcourt, if you go to Port Harcourt today, they are facing a tremendous issue called soot. It's also that's also moved into Bayelsa. So for a government who understands the implication of what they are doing and decides to say they want to quickly to burn crude oil, whereas the value of that product in that vessel already is enough to have been able to add little financial value to the country that is already bleeding. So we ask ourselves this question, gone too many, when are we going to have a situation where people should be accountable for taking this country for granted? This country seems to appear to me that we know the solution to our problem, but we have refused to do them because of lack of political will and bureaucracies. So back to what my earlier guest today had said. You see, some people lack the formal understanding of what is going on in the region, and it's quite unfortunate that when you say community issues is being addressed, it's not being addressed as it's supposed to. The recommendations that were put forward in that PIA had been untwisted, and that's why you can see that 1 year plus after the PIA was signed, they're still finding it difficult to implement that section of the act, because we as consultants worked with the committees, made several presentations, and those presentations were swept under the carpet. So we simplified the processes that would enable them implement a system that is workable. Because as I speak to you, Shell, for example, has a GMOU agreement with communities, which is a template that is already workable. Okay. So if the government is sincere and has the political will to implement these processes to safeguard Nigeria and its investment, then they would implement the legislative processes that will integrate community, which is a great factor. You know why I'm saying this thing in conclusion is that the Tompolo that we are celebrating today is who are the people that he's working with. These persons are the community, are people within the Delta. They are not soldiers, they are not NSADC, they are not police. So what we are advocating for comes back to the community policing we are talking about.
The community policing. I meant to go to Annkio, but Annkio, just give me a minute. Let me bring Warredi here, then I'll come back to you so that we can wrap up. Warredi, I want you to react to that because, and keep in mind, let me give you a quote here. You were quoted to have said that the arrest of this particular destroyed ship was based on intelligence gathering, disclosing that your security men, in quote, monitored space via satellite, which you also have reiterated here. First, address the situation, which is of great concern to many community people, as spoken of by Elvis. They still think that it's not the same as you have said by saying that they are being carried along. To what extent is the involvement of communities in the fight against oil theft?
Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited, whom I consult for, as I know, have employed a total of 17,000 community-based people. How they are spread out is something that you may need to go on ground and have a look at. It is not easy for one company, a private sector company, to take on that. You understand? Because quite a fair bit of the people that are involved were, taken out of the areas that are most devastated, because the whole idea and how to bring some form of calmness into the place is not to take food off people's table, but replace the current type of food they have. That is the situation. And I think that's a very laudable way to go.
And quickly here, the technology you spoke about, to what extent is that being backed by the Nigerian government in the activities of Tantita?
Tantita is not empowered to arrest anybody. It's still the government forces that are empowered by law to make arrests. Tantita is to provide intelligence to the forces that have the power of arrest. So they have invested a lot in terms of satellite imagery. And even in the past, they didn't just jump into this job. As a matter of fact, this job was given to them as a result of proof that they can perform. That is why it is given to them. So, it is not easy for the government forces also. Let me say that here. It is not easy. Because where you have military and community or civil people, the boundary can be very, very rough. So they have been very, very tolerant to some extent, which people may think, oh, it's a compromising position, but then they are trying to make peace. You can't militarize the whole region. It's not possible. So they have been managing this boundary very well. And the only way that this thing can go, in my opinion, as an expert, is to give you a clear example of Israel. Israel is literally impregnable, not just because of the military, it's because of the private sector. As you know, our government agencies are bogged down in bureaucracy. The criminals have no bureaucracy.
All right,
And
okay.
the private sector have no bureaucracy. And let me also add to it that from our own
very quickly, please.
and intelligence, one of the countries that benefit most from Nigeria's crude oil theft within us here is Ghana, Tema. This particular ship has been carrying crude oil between Ghana and Nigeria. We've been monitoring it for ages. So
Warredi, I think the issue of oil theft in Nigeria is one that we really can't, discuss in a program. So we'll come back to this. Let me quickly bring in Annkio Briggs as we close for today. Annkio, speak to us about, because now I just asked Warredi how logical that was to destroy the ship in an environment that the cleanup is yet to commence. Speak to us about what the government should do, about returning aquatic and human life to the Niger Delta region.
The report of the UNEP, and I will go very fast because I really want to make some points. The report of the UNEP that came out from them using Ogoni as an entry point is just that, an entry point into the Niger Delta. So first of all, as an environmentalist, going by the UNEP report, we know that the devastation already that has existed before now is impossible to clean up within the next 30 years, according to the UNEP report. That's one. Two, it is not acceptable environmentally to set fire to a product in the environment. And one thing we must understand, the Tompolo company did not set fire to this ship. It was the Nigerian Navy that set fire to the ship. Now, the fact that the Nigerian Navy set fire to the ship shows that the Nigerian Navy under the federal government have no respect for the lives and the environment of the Niger Delta people. That Tompolo is using his private business that has been given to him as a contract to now deploy the workforces within the areas where he is covering so that people who are badly put off would be able to benefit. Is a laudable thing. He doesn't have to do it, but he's doing it. The other companies that have this this protection contract should also do as Tompolo is doing. He's not the only person. Now, going to the environment, please, the oil companies have always said the oil companies are not a developmental company. The government of Nigeria is the one that owes us development. What the government of Nigeria also owes us and the oil company owes us is the protection of our environment. And that is why I will continue to ask and preach to my people. It is time that we actually begin to call for a moratorium on the exploration of oil and gas. Put a stop to it until you're ready to do what you do in elsewhere. Stop taking the oil and gas from the from Niger Delta region. Let us begin to see how we can save. You're asking me, how can we save it? It is almost impossible at the rate that the destruction of the environment is still going on. It's a vicious circle. The government is not cleaning up the environment. The oil companies are abandoning the devastation they have created. And yet the Niger Delta people are supposed to give them peace, are supposed to give them quiet so that they can continue to explore and turn my region into this. Look at this. How can you blame people who are living under these circumstances? I come from a community where this type of devastation is. Ken Sarawiwa was killed because of this. These people you're showing us carried guns because of the devastation. Still, they laid down their arms, and still today, we still have the same environmental devastation
I think no
going
doubt,
on.
no doubt, it's a pain that the people already bear, and it's one that the government should also and must also look into, and that is why this conversation should continue, and I look forward to having Warredi, Annkio, and Elvis to come back so that we can start talking about the moratorium, also talk about the cleanup and security of the region, because it looks like a two-pronged issue, looking at some of the key things we already painted. The local activities on one hand, and the big, unbelievable international angle in this thievery of Nigeria's crude. I'd like to thank you for your time, Annkio Briggs, as always. Captain Warredi Enisuoh, many thanks. And Elvis Donkemezuo, thank you for finding time to be here live in the studios. To our viewers across the 54 African countries and beyond, thank you for watching. And you get to watch this pretty much later on our YouTube channel. I'm Sulaiman. Bye-bye.